Well, at long last, we have made it. We have made it to the NFL Draft 2024. And young Cody, this is the most special edition of Jonesing for Football we have had since probably this time last year. We've got the man off the elliptical, young Cody.
That's right, Bill Jones. It is NFL Draft Week, as my sign says. And we know the quarterbacks are going to be the center of attention. So there could be six, by the way, six quarterbacks going in the first round. So who better to break them down than a former NFL quarterback and the current radio analyst for the Dallas Cowboys? It's good to welcome back our friend, our buddy, our biggest supporter,
Yes.
Babe Laufenberg, to the show. Hello, Babe. Welcome back to Jonesing for Football.
Yes. Hello, gentlemen. And I never miss a podcast, and I do it on my elliptical. And if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you know that my elliptical lasts as long as a podcast. So when you guys go the 48 minutes, trust me, people are coming up saying, "Hey, do I need to call 911 for you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good. This should end any moment here." And Bill, question for you.
Yes, sir.
If he is young Cody, does that make me old Babe?
No, you are, what are you? You're Babe. Babes never get old, right?
I'm youthful at heart. And hey, Cody, to your point, the six quarterbacks that are going to be taken most likely in the first round, just such intrigue in this draft. And quarterback always makes that thing go, as we know. The Johnny Manziel draft. I mean, remember 2013, Eric Fisher, good player. First pick in the draft, 5 of the first 11 in that 2013 draft were offensive linemen. I mean, that gets nobody's juices flowing.
True.
This year, totally different.
Yep.
Hey, Babe, remind me, what day were you drafted?
I was day one draft pick. That's what I tell
Okay.
all the kids. Yep. When they say, "I'm Mr. Laufenberg, when were you drafted?" And I say, first day. "Oh man, you're a first rounder." And then I never want to lie to the kids. So I just say, "Hey, who needs more lemonade?" That was in the day when round 1 through 6 took place on day 1 and 7 through 12 on day 2. And so, like Tom Brady, I was taken in the 6th round.
That
Beautiful.
was before anyone knew who Mel Kiper Jr. was as well.
Yeah, you're probably exactly right. At that time, I was just waiting for a call for the phone that literally hung on the wall in my apartment. And I'll never forget it because the draft was like a Tuesday, Wednesday or something. And it was during the day, probably started at 11 a.m., I think. And so at 11:01, my phone rang. And I thought, oh my God, I'm the first pick of the draft. Everybody was projecting Elway. And I picked up the phone. It was my sister. "Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything?" I said, "No, get off the damn phone because call waiting hasn't been invented. Don't call me back."
I'll call you. Don't call
Yes.
me. How about that? All right, babe, let's dive into this. So for the last few months, the quarterback group here has kind of been separated into a top group and a little bit lower group with Caleb Williams, with Jaden Daniels, and with Drake Maye being that top group. But now I'm not really so sure because some people like J.J. McCarthy, some people like Bo Nix, like Bill Jones. So before we jump into each individual prospect, how do you rank those top 6 guys as we enter draft week here?
Well, like everyone else, Caleb Williams is kind of in that spot by himself, right? We know the Bears are taking him, and rightfully so. I don't think there's any doubt that he is the number 1 guy coming into this draft. Doesn't mean down the road that we say, wow, this guy ended up better than Caleb Williams. But I think it's unanimous. Caleb Williams is the guy. The more I look at J.J. McCarthy, and I've looked at him a ton, the more I like him. I want to love Drake Maye. I want to love him because he's prototypical, and we heard all the, during the season, everything. And the more I looked at him, the less I liked him. Doesn't mean he's not a good player. Doesn't mean he won't be a good pro. But I've got J.J. McCarthy ahead of Drake Maye now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's the table for things here.
Yeah, and we'll get to them. And they've all got a little something. I like Bo Nix. One of the things too, guys, doing the Cowboy games on Sunday, half the time we're flying. I'm on the charter. We're flying to wherever we're going on a Saturday. And you don't see a lot of the college games closely. You look at them, you see some highlights. So after the season, I dig in. And again, I'd heard all the Drake Maye talk. and I didn't like him as much as I thought I would. And I heard the J.J. McCarthy knocks. And the more I looked at him, I was like, what are these people talking about? Penix, Washington, absolutely rips the football. I mean, you talk about platforms and all these things, and I'm not real hung up on that, but I don't think anybody like basically has a quicker time from seeing it to getting it out of his hand. And he's got a great arm. We also saw he ran 4.6 on his pro day, 4.58, I believe exactly. So he can move it a little. He didn't do it much at Washington. We know the injury factor. So, man, there's a lot of things involved with these quarterbacks this year.
All right. Well, before we get to the real juicy stuff, let's talk Caleb. And what do you see in Caleb, and what concerns would you have about Caleb Williams?
Well, funny enough, I did see in person. I went to Notre Dame, went to South Bend, saw the USC Notre Dame game. Caleb Williams.
Worst game.
Pardon me?
His worst game.
Oh, gosh.
By far.
He threw 5 interceptions on the year. I saw 3 of them in person because 3 of them came against Notre Dame. But I did see a lot of Caleb Williams because obviously USC being on the West Coast, they played a lot more of those later games. So even when we get to hotels, you settle in 7 o'clock, USC is just kicking off against Arizona or Arizona State or whoever. But he's your guy, no question. I like him. He got a little loose in my mind, with the football, not in terms of his throwing, but it's almost like dropping back and scanning and looking to make every play. And we all know, obviously, USC's defense didn't hold anyone. I know, Bill, that's been your issue with Lincoln Riley, but he had a lot to overcome in that regard. But somebody's going to get him. They're going to have to coach him back up, which is interesting because he had Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury, who is now the OC for the Washington Commanders. But they're going to have to tighten him up a little bit. But I remember Bill Walsh talking about John Elway when he was coming out. And obviously Elway's talent was enormous. But he used to go out the back of the pocket at Stanford, and you can make those plays when you're in college. And Elway had good athletic ability. But you get to the pros, you can't go out of the back of the pocket anymore. So, again, they're going to have to tighten Caleb down. But no doubt in my mind that that's going to be a short process.
Follow-up for you on Caleb here, babe. Some of my friends in Chicago have made the case that Caleb isn't a great fit for the city. He is a little bit different from some of the quarterback prospects we've seen. Painting the nails, right, crying after the losses, family heavily involved. I don't really make anything of that stuff. I feel like if he wins, the city's going to love him. If he loses, they're going to turn on him. What do you make of those kind of questionable things that, like, some people may make a big deal out of, others, they don't really matter if you're a good player?
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me, but like Ronald Reagan said about Russia, trust but verify. So the Bears are doing their due diligence if any of that comes up. But have I painted my nails? No. I don't have a tattoo either. I can tell you a lot of things that I don't do that kids today do.
Yep.
But no, I don't think it's not an issue for me. And again, I'm sure the Chicago Bears they have turned over every stone on this guy. But the talent is immense. Your buddy's in Chicago, Cody. Can you ask him a trivia question for me?
Yeah, I'd love to.
What is the only franchise in the NFL that has never had a 4,000-yard passer?
Yeah, they're well aware. They bring it up all the time.
Let's not worry if the ball is coming out of his hand with some painted fingernails. Let's just watch how the ball comes out.
I like it.
All right, let's go to Jayden Daniels. And what an unbelievable final season he had at LSU, winning the Heisman Trophy after transferring from Arizona State. He was at LSU for a couple of years. This morning, in fact, I went to try to figure out why was Jayden Daniels so much better his second year at LSU than his first year at LSU. And in fact, I went back to his Arkansas game from last year, and he had the worst stats that he had in his collegiate career, just to get some perspective. Okay, this is where he is at his worst. Interesting little tidbit on him. They used artificial intelligence at times with him in preparing for games his second year at LSU with his offensive coordinator to help him prepare. And it might be something that other schools and other NFL teams might be using now, that virtual reality technology where you can visualize and basically put your game plan in, and it helped him as far as his processing goes. What do you see out of Jayden Daniels and how his game translates to the NFL?
I do like that, though, Bill. We're in 2024, and once upon a time, we talked about football intelligence, and now we're dealing with artificial intelligence. Obviously, I saw what probably any college football fan saw, which was a tremendous athlete, carried that team on times on his back. Very quickly, J.J. McCarthy, I believe his first 8 games at Michigan this year, they never allowed more than 10 points. I'm watching LSU Ole Miss, and Jayden Daniels put up 49, and he lost. They lost 55-49. So I think we have this notion that LSU is this great football team, and he did have a couple of good receivers, obviously, Malik Neighbors at the top, and he had some help offensively, but he had to carry that team a little bit more than I think most people thought. But no, I love his athletic ability. It's funny because there's a part of me that likes J.J. McCarthy better than Jayden Daniels, a part of me. But if I were in Washington's position at number 2, I don't think I could pass on Jayden Daniels, because I don't want to say you're passing up Pat Mahomes, but he's got a little bit of that. He's got a little Lamar Jackson. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson too, not just in his running ability. He drops his elbow, which I don't like throwing the ball, at least in consistency. But, I didn't like the way Lamar Jackson dropped his elbow when he was coming out of school, but I like him now when he's at Baltimore and he's still dropping that elbow. So sometimes you can't get too caught up in style, but that would be my only drawback. I'd like to see him just raise that elbow up a little bit, and maybe they'll do that when he gets to Washington, if that's indeed where he goes.
Babe, let me ask you about Daniels and his frame, because he looks like a slender guy, and we just went through this with Bryce Young last year, the size, and that was a big difference. And I know you were a CJ Stroud guy over a Bryce Young guy, just a lot of it based on the size, some other things, but a lot of it was based on the size. What do you make of Jayden Daniels and it says he's 6'3" and a half, 210 at the pro day. He doesn't look that big to me, but whatever. What do you make of his size? Because he runs through defenses and takes some shots. What do you make of just his frame going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see, again, a more prototypical guy, but he is a kind of a narrow-framed guy. The 210 he weighed on his pro day, I guarantee you he was bulking up. My guess is he played at 200 at LSU, just like Bryce Young. Bryce Young weighed 200 either on his pro day or the combine. I can't quite remember, but he played at about 180 at Alabama. So it's funny, the guys that need to add the weight, they do. And then guys at the combine that want to run, 4.4, they lose weight just so they're faster. But it's funny too, Jayden Daniels is a one-man highlight film. Now, yes, a lot of it is on his own, but he's also on a lot of defenders' highlight films, because I've never seen a guy that is as good an athlete as Jayden Daniels is get lit up like Jayden Daniels did. And in the pros, they're going to tell him, hey, get your yards, get down. You take those shots in the pros, and that's when the ambulance is coming out to pick you up and take you to the hospital and get you checked out.
All right, so follow up on Washington, because obviously with the number 2 pick, they're taking a quarterback, and Jayden Daniels seems to be growing to be a consensus that it's going to be Daniels. We'll see. And I think he fits as well with Cliff Kingsbury as the OC. But what do you make of what Washington has done, trading away Sam Howell, and now Marcus Mariota was signed?
Yeah, I that was a head scratcher for me, and I'll be honest with you, I think it was a bad move. The Mariota signing told me to a little bit that Jayden Daniels is their guy, because Mariota is a similar type player, can run, obviously, it's what he did at Oregon. But to pay $6 million for Mariota to come in and back up, it just made no sense to me. And I like Sam Howell. I like him a lot. I could see him going out to Seattle and beating out Geno Smith. And let's look at Sam Howell. He gets their first-year starter. I know, second year in the league, first-year starter. What'd they do? They threw the ball more than any other team in the NFL last year. It was criminal. what they did to this guy. And they could have run it. They ran the ball decently. They have average skill position players. Cody, I know you love you, Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. And he's a good player, but he's a number 2 on a good team. He's a number 3 on a great team. Logan Thomas, solid tight end, but I just did not understand what Washington was doing, throwing the ball like they did. Sam Howell got sacked more times than anybody in the NFL. They didn't have a good offensive line. So it's like, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we just expose our first-year starter and drop him back about 1,000 times during the season and get him killed? But I would have kept Sam Howell, developed him there. I'm not going to compare him to Drew Brees, but you all remember when Phillip Rivers was drafted, they had Drew Brees in San Diego with the Chargers. And I think they went 4-12 the previous year. And Brees was on his way out. Phillip Rivers held out the next year. And so Brees ended up starting at the beginning of the season, back in the day when, you could hold out through training camp. And Brees had a great year, and that launched it. And again, I'm not going to compare Sam Howell to Drew Brees, but I could have seen a very similar thing happening the way it happened with Brees and Rivers in San Diego, that it could have happened in Washington with Sam Howell and Jaden Daniels, again, if that's our guy. So I thought it was a huge mistake on Washington's part.
All right, babe. You've been hyping it up. I've been looking forward to this. Let's talk about the most polarizing prospect in the draft. You've already said you like J.J. McCarthy more than Drake Maye, so we're going with J.J. McCarthy ahead of Drake Maye on this podcast here. 4 months ago, Michigan won the title. He was a borderline first-round prospect. Here we are a few months later, and he might go as high as number 3. So, babe, when you evaluate JJ, did you think he was worthy of a top 5 pick, which kind of seems likely at this point?
Well, again, getting back to when we kind of opened up, I don't see a lot of the college football during the season. When I do, I'm usually doing my notes, getting ready for the Cowboy games. As you mentioned, I'm the Cowboys analyst. And so I'm working. But I just look up. Games happening, I look up, I see a play, but I don't get a feel for the play. I don't get a feel for the guy. But I'd heard everything about McCarthy that obviously everyone else had. When I dug in and started looking, and I probably watched every game of his 4 times. And again, the more I looked at him, the more I liked him. So what's the knock on him? You tell me right now. What's the knock?
In my opinion, if you're going to draft a first-round quarterback, you want someone who's going to carry an offense. J.J. McCarthy, in my opinion, which is why I have him 6th on these list of quarterbacks, has not done that consistently in the league. 3 times he's thrown for 300 or more yards in 40 college games. So again, if you're looking for a game manager, J.J. McCarthy can do that. But if you're going to invest a top 5 pick or top 10 pick in somebody, I want a Josh Allen. I want a Patrick Mahomes. I want a potential of Caleb Williams that's going to carry an offense. That's, I think, the biggest knock on him.
So it's J.J. McCarthy's fault that as the quarterback, he went undefeated this year. That's his fault.
I wouldn't say it's his fault.
That he never put his team behind.
This is like the Troy Aikman.
Sure.
Elway had all these come from behind victories. Where Aikman, he never was behind, so we didn't have come from behind victories.
Okay, here's things that I look at, and again, as I dug in, and 3rd and 7+. Okay, McCarthy had the highest conversion rate of any of the top 6 quarterbacks, and I mean by far. By far, no one else was close at converting 3rd and 7+. 4th down, he was 7 of 8. Now, you're not throwing the ball on 4th down because you're ahead, right? So in those clutch situations, again, 3rd and 7+, John Elway used to always say they pay me for 3rd down, which I'm a believer in. 3rd and 7+, he was by far the best. He's athletic. He throws on the run. He can make people miss. I think his footwork is as good as anybody. I know people talk about he's overstriding and that. And 2 or 3 times a game, will that maybe affect the throw? Maybe. But I just love the way he played the game. I love the way he processed. I think he won a couple, if I'm not mistaken, state championships in Chicago. He played his senior year at IMG because they didn't have, I think they were out of the 2020 COVID, they weren't playing football up there. But yeah, I mean, so he's a winner. He's good on third down. He's good late in the game. I know he didn't need to do anything, right? But Alabama, Michigan is down 20-13 with 4 minutes left in the game, and they get the ball. And against Alabama, they go 5 plays, 75 yards, game-winning touchdown. He completes a 4th and 2 in that drive as well. So they go 75 yards to get that thing tied up, and 66 of the yards were passing yards. So granted, he didn't have to do that a lot because they played from ahead so much, but when he needed to, he got the job done. Again, I love him.
And in fact, I was look back this morning at the Michigan Alabama game, and on that 4th and 2 play, he's reading the defense. He put Blake Corum from his left to his right. It was a bunch formation over here. He knew he had them on that play, and sure enough, he was wide open on the right flank. The other thing in that game, Cody, did you see the play that he made in that game against Alabama on the throwback pass? I mean, that was unbelievable. Running back throws the ball back. He makes a one-handed grab. Basically, I would fall down, but one-handed grab off balance. He's got a top 10 draft pick, Dallas Turner, bearing down on him, and he somehow makes the throw accurately downfield to Roman Wilson. Unbelievably athletic play.
Just so you know, Bill, that I didn't steal that from you, I posted that to my Twitter earlier today, and I said, if you're questioning J.J. McCarthy's athleticism, just watch this play. It was unbelievable.
J.J. is a good athlete. I don't think anyone would disagree. But he's best outside the pocket. I think most would agree with that. And I have a few stats for you, babe. Some third down and long distances. So 3rd and 9, I have 3rd and 9 or 4th and 9 plus. Out of these 6 quarterbacks, he is the best rating-wise, no doubt about it. Here's where I can make a comparison. How about 3rd and 3 through 3rd and 8? So you call a ton of games. What happens more? Are there more 3rd and 9 plus, or are there more 3rd and 3 through 3rd and 8? So 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Here's my question, or here's why. J.J. McCarthy, 5th out of 6, these 6 quarterbacks in 3rd and 3 through 3rd and 8. So his completion percentage is 60%. His rating is 132, which is below Jaden, below Caleb, below Bo Nix, below Drake Maye. So yeah, this year, he was good 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 9 plus, but he was not good 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. And if you want to take it back to last year, 3rd and 9 plus, his passer rating was 100 points less in 3rd and 9 plus last year. So
you're talking 2022.
2022, yeah.
So what you're saying is you're seeing tremendous improvements. That's I mean,
sure. Or it's a small sample size this year where I just gave you a different third down on 3rd and 5 where I would want someone who's good on that down as well.
Which, by the way, babe, I think that is another great illustration that the improvement that he's making and understanding that J.J. McCarthy is the youngest quarterback amongst all these quarterbacks too. He just turned 21 in January. Drake Maye is a guy, I think he's about 5 months older than J.J. McCarthy. I'm with you on McCarthy. I think I'm really leaning now towards, I think New England, if they keep the pick, I think that they will take McCarthy and Drake Maye is going to be the 4th quarterback taken. What is it that you see from Drake Maye that you like, and what is it that you question?
Well, you keep hearing the word prototypical, and he does. Size, arm, good stroke, throwing the ball. A little questionable in terms of his decision-making. Now, one thing, too, you never know how they're being coached. That's one thing I always say. What are they teaching him? What are they telling him? And I'm not privy to all that. So you might see where you look at the tape and you say, oh, that's a bad read. Well, maybe they're teaching him to read it in a different fashion than what I would or whoever is watching it. But I just saw too much inconsistency from Drake Maye. He's a good athlete, but he's not a nifty runner. He does not make people miss. Not that that's the end all be all. I don't think I saw Peyton Manning make anybody miss in his 20 years in the NFL. But I just expected to see a little more from Drake Maye. Again, I wanted to love him. All the hype early, he was the anti-J.J. McCarthy, right? Before the season, Drake Maye may have been the first pick in the draft. I mean, Caleb was up there, but he was right up bumping against him. And there were people talking about he may go before Caleb. And J.J. McCarthy, to your point, Cody, you said basically he was a second rounder. The more I looked at it, again, I thought I'd like McCarthy. I loved McCarthy. I thought I'd love Drake Maye. I like Drake Maye.
And I'm kind of the same way where, in fact, I was texting Cody, give me a game that, give me a couple of games that I can look at of Drake Maye where I can start liking him. And he gave me the Holiday Bowl, which was his last game of the season, where I think how many touchdowns? He had 37 touchdowns and 7 picks that year or something like that. That was his better season. His numbers were down the last year at North Carolina. So who did they play in that Holiday Bowl? Well, they played Oregon and my Bo Nix, and I came away more impressed with Bo Nix. Even though he didn't have a particularly good game, he was playing on a bad ankle that game.
Go back to J.J. McCarthy too quickly. He played under center, played in a kind of a pro-style offense, played with 1 tight end, played with 2 tight ends. So I think his assimilation into the NFL game is going to be a little quicker. And people talk about, well, he had Jim Harbaugh there. Well, he was suspended for half the season, Harbaugh. So it's like, he was
so he
there.
He kind of had him. He kind of didn't have him. I got it.
For 6 weeks, Harbaugh was living in the RV and he didn't have him. So we'll see.
That's a good question. That's a good point, babe. Do you think that that's the kind of offense that whoever drafts him is going to have to run in the league, or can they run shotgun, zone read, just like every other offense in the league is doing currently?
Absolutely. McCarthy, he's such a good athlete that, he'll handle any offense. Okay. And I always like it when you hear people talk about, this guy runs a quarterback-friendly offense. Well, who sets out to run the quarterback-unfriendly offense? Have you ever heard that? We run a quarterback-unfriendly offense. We like to put our quarterback in as difficult positions as possible. So I hate that terminology.
But there is a difference. Some teams have good offensive lines, some don't. Some run the ball more often, some don't. Some have great wide receivers and great schemes and movements where, like, that was the big thing for me on JJ. Every time I saw a good play, I thought that was a great design. Guys are wide open, like those backs, the play you mentioned, the running back wide open outside. I was like, that's a great play design. Now he hit him, but he was wide open. It couldn't have been any easier.
Cody, have you watched any Ohio State football and those receivers up there getting open?
A few times. A few times.
That's the funny thing, too. Just very quickly, going back to last year, you looked at C.J. Stroud and you said, well, how much do we balance that with the fact that he's playing with better receivers at Ohio State than he'll ever play with in the NFL?
Yep.
And it was much like Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech. They all threw for 8,000 yards. Nobody ever became a real top flight, QB coming out of Texas Tech. So I think Mahomes got knocked down a little bit, product of the system, although obviously a lot more people and teams are running that type of system. At one point, the air raid, a handful of teams ran it. Now you see it, half the teams in college football on Saturday are running the same deal. So, but then we saw what C.J. Stroud did, obviously, at Houston last year. So, yes, he had great receivers at Ohio State, but yes, he was a great quarterback. So similarly, did Michigan get some people open? Yes, but it doesn't take away from the fact that McCarthy, to me, is a heck of a good player. And trust me, he can run any offense. He can run any offense you want to run.
All right, J.J. McCarthy, the youngest quarterback in this bunch, and one of the oldest is Bo Nix, who, of course, started his career at Auburn and then transferred to Oregon and put a couple of successful seasons together. What do you see out of Bo Nix, and where do you think his best fit would be in the NFL?
Hold on, let me just say, be kind, because this is Bill Jones' man crush here, so don't go too hard if you're going to come hard on it.
Well, I know Bill has the man crush. I don't have the man crush on him that Bill does, but I like him maybe a little bit more than most. And again, here's the deal. We talked about it. Don't see a lot on Saturday, so when you dig into the tape, it's a different deal. His arm strength was called into question, a bunch of short passes. We know that, right? That Oregon offense. But when I had to see him rip the ball to the other side of the field from the far hash, no problem. So I kind of said, I don't know, where is the lack of arm strength coming from in terms of the general consensus on Bo Nix? I'm like, these people haven't watched the game. Because I saw all I needed to see. Loved his interviews. Bill.
Yes.
And no, I mean, again, these 6 guys, you got to get back to it. They all 6 have some intriguing quality to them, in my opinion, that you don't get in every draft. You might have 1 or 2 of these guys, but all 6, you can make a case for or against. And hey, as we all know, there's these 6. Okay, let's say they all become first-round picks, right? 2 of them are going to be Pro Bowlers, studs. Oh my goodness, what a great player. 2 of them are going to be kind of those marginal starters, the Marcus Mariotas, right? Bounce around, start here, not good enough, start here, not good enough, then become a backup when you're 30. And 2 of them are going to flame out. Here's the problem. I don't know which 2 are going to be in any of those guys. But we all know, history tells us all 6 of these guys are not going to the Hall of Fame. They're not all going to get fitted for gold jackets.
And Cody, here's a little something for you. You're familiar with this Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus? Are you
sure? Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. He tweeted this morning, would it surprise you to find out Bo Nix targeted more passes 10 or more yards downfield last year than Jaden Daniels and had more touchdowns on 10 or more yard targets than Michael Penix?
See, I'm with you on Bo Nix. I have Nix, I think 4th on that list because speaking of Pro Football Focus, they did a whole article on the best quarterbacks in this class given the situations. Bo Nix was best when pressured, when blitzed, throws past the sticks, intermediate passing, 1st and 2nd down, 3rd and 4th down, and outside the pocket. That seems like he's pretty good overall. Not only is he good at those, he's the best out of the bunch at all those. So I like Bo Nix as probably number 4 as well. I just, again, have an issue with the age, and we'll see from there. But I like Bo Nix. Babe, before we
quick question.
Go here. Yes, sir.
Quick question for you. Why?
Yeah.
When you say you have an issue with the age, what does that mean? Why?
Well, I would say comparatively to the other guys, like Caleb is 3 years younger or 2 or 3 years younger. And same for those other guys. So that's why I would give the age lean towards those guys rather than Bo Nix, who's just played a ton more than some of these other guys. And again, maybe it's not age, maybe it's experience, I guess is probably what I'm saying.
Well, I look at it this way too. So you say, oh, this guy's 24, this guy's 21. I look at it from a maturity standpoint, both in life and that 21-year-old, his body is going to become more like a man. You're really still a kid. You're still developing at 21 for the most part. Take Tyron Smith, the Cowboys left tackle who was drafted when he was 20 years old. Take him out of the equation. When he walked into that building, I said, that is not a 20-year-old right there. I mean, he had the body of a man. Yeah. But so if you're Washington, okay, and you say, well, I'm going to take this 24-year-old, but he's only probably going to give us 10 good years. They haven't seen 10 good years out of anybody, right? So the age does not bother me in the least. I remember when Terrence Newman came out at K-State corner, it was he and I believe Marcus Trufant. And Terrence Newman was 25 years old. So they were kind of viewed equally, but Trufant was like 4 years younger. Terrence Newman played till he was 40. So I never get hung up in this guy's 23 and this guy's 24. That doesn't bother me. Now, the 21-year-old, again, that body is going to develop. All right. Sure. So J.J. McCarthy at 21, Drake Maye at 21, they're going to put 10, 15 pounds on their frame. No problem.
Babe, the last of the 6 quarterbacks here. Let's ask you about Michael Penix. Some people love him. Some people a little hesitant on him. I think there's a chance that he might go 2nd round. He might be like the 1st or 2nd pick in the 2nd round. What do you think of Penix when you broke down the tape?
Boy, he rips it, better than any of them. I mean, just the ball coming out of his hand. You love him. And he's going to be, again, one of those intriguing guys. I have to take the injury equation out of it, right? The fact that he had 2 knee surgery, 2 ACLs, each shoulder, all season-ending injuries. I have to take it out of the equation, but teams don't. They're looking very closely at all that. But just watching the guy, watching the player, I mean, he threw the ball about as well as anybody. I mean, I'll put him right up there kind of with Caleb Williams. Obviously, he had a poor bowl game, the last game. But boy, there's a lot to like. And I'll go back to, I watched him, graduated from Indiana, as we know. And when I saw him play at Indiana, I did see a little more of that because obviously I'm watching Indiana a little bit. I just said, oh, we got our quarterback. We've got a quarterback for the next 4 years. This guy's tremendous. He went 12-5 as a starter at Indiana. That's hard to do. I think he gave your Buckeyes all you wanted, if I'm not mistaken, in one game, Cody.
He did. Yeah, he was a stud. I remember he reached to the end zone in one play, scored an incredible play. Yeah, he was a great player.
It's not unlike a little bit like Dak Prescott when he was at Mississippi State. You're playing in the SEC, and they had a number 1 ranking at one point. I believe they went 10-2 at the end of the year. And that's hard to do at Mississippi State. You're carrying that team. And I thought Michael Penix did the same thing when he was at Indiana, obviously surrounded with much better talent at Washington.
All right, Babe, are there any day 2 or 3 quarterbacks that have caught your eye? And by day 2, I don't mean 7th round free agents.
Well, they no longer do 6 one day and 6 the next.
That's right.
The one I haven't looked at every guy, so I got to come right up front with that. So there may be a guy lurking there who I haven't seen. The Western Kentucky quarterback haven't watched. So, but I did look at Spencer Rattler quite extensively, and I know you have familiarity, obviously, Bill, with him starting out at Oklahoma. You kind of I liked what I saw throwing the ball. That was a guy again that had to carry his team. You're playing at South Carolina in the SEC. The odds are against you, stacked up against you before you kick it off. And but I watched the entire Clemson game, and he got the hell beat out of him. I mean, every play he would hit his back foot, and I don't mean just having to sidestep or move or throwing as he's getting hit. He was getting blasted. It was just one defensive highlight reel after another of Spencer Rattler just getting killed. We talked Drake Maye, prototypical, all that. Spencer Rattler's not. I believe he measured at 6 even. Would that be correct, Bill Jones?
Something like that.
Okay. So it doesn't have that side, but I see him being a solid player in the NFL for a number of years. Now, is he going to be your starter? Or is he going to be the guy you say, there's our guy? Probably not, but I do like him. And again, you're not taking the guy in the first round, so that's a whole different ballgame.
And I agree with you. And there's a guy who has matured throughout his college years, was humbled at Oklahoma, went in there, a cocky kid out of Phoenix who was a 5-star top quarterback in the country. And just listening to him talk, and I've got intrigued because he sounded like that humility had done him some good. And he seems like he's a guy that you can trust with your offense and so forth. And I went back and looked at some of his stuff, and I was impressed. A lot of stuff where he is getting blasted and completing passes. He's got the arm talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you say, well, I worry about his size. Just put the tape on and watch him get blasted, as you say, and then just get up and go to the next play. And so that impressed me about him. Also, to your point, Bill, came out cocky, arrogant. You're the number 1 high school quarterback coming out of school, out of Arizona. And, you do get humbled a little bit. And I do think that's the difference for me on that 21-year-old quarterback and the 24-year-old quarterback. Bo Nix has just had a lot more life experiences, right? When you're 24 than you do at 21. I think we can all attest to that. I was doing crazy, dumb stuff when I was 21. And then, you know what? I was doing crazy, dumb stuff when I was 24 too. So scratch that comment.
You're a bad example. You're a bad.
Yeah, let's take me out of this equation.
Thankfully, there was no internet back there and no social media too.
I think about that. I'm not kidding. I think about it all the time.
Babe, before we let you go, we have to ask you about the Dallas Cowboys. You've been around the Cowboys. You played for the Cowboys. You've been covering them for years. How would you feel if the Cowboys selected a quarterback in this draft, maybe day 1, maybe day 2, somewhat early? How would you feel about that?
I would not be against it, and that's not a knock on Dak. I'm a Dak fan or supporter, whatever you want to say. I mean, he's a heck of a quarterback. I do. Mike McCarthy talked about, I've never seen a guy take more abuse than Dak, who was a good player, basically. I'm paraphrasing all that. But you're here, or Cowboy fans, of course, are across the nation, and you want to get rid of Dak. He led the league in touchdown passes. He was runner-up in the MVP, and we want to get rid of this guy. But my statement about taking a quarterback in this draft is the best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one. And nobody's been a better example of that than the Green Bay Packers. They had Brett Favre. They drafted Aaron Brooks. They drafted Mark Brunell. All these guys, Hasselbeck, all these guys that became Pro Bowlers for other teams, but they were going to be ready to go. If, who knew that Favre would play till whatever it was, 36, 37. And then they drafted, obviously, Jordan Love when they had Aaron Rodgers. Pissed off Aaron Rodgers, but guess what? Aaron Rodgers is gone, and it looks like they have a Pro Bowl type quarterback on their hands for the next 10 years. So again, big believer, best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one. The problem comes is when you need one. So you reach, the guy really doesn't belong being drafted wherever you draft him, but if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a choice. So I would not be against, if Caleb Williams is sitting there at number 24, I would not be against the Cowboys taking it.
That's how I was going to follow up, because Cody did say day one on that, which in these days is day one is first round. So at 24, I wasn't going to throw Caleb Williams there, but if J.J. McCarthy, your guy, J.J. McCarthy, were there at 24, you'd jump on it.
You kidding me? You kidding me? And as we talk today, I don't think it'll be the same when we talk in a week or a month or 3 months from now. Dak Prescott's on the last year of his contract.
They've already got their first round quarterback out of this draft, and that's Trey Lance, who they spent a 4th round draft pick on.
Well, and I think that's interesting. They know in the building. I go out to practice. We never saw Trey Lance in training camp here in Dallas. You go out to practice, you get to watch him stretch, throw a pat and go. So you don't see a whole lot. I mean, I saw Trey Lance throwing the ball, and there's a reason he was the 3rd pick in the draft. I mean, you love just watching him drop back and smooth and rip the ball and got everything there. But this is going to be a big year for Trey Lance, and we'll find out a little bit more of what they think of him. Now, I'm not saying he's going to supplant Dak, but just, hey, at one point, this guy was the 3rd pick in the draft that the 49ers gave up a ton to go up and get. So I am very intrigued to watch him play this preseason.
Are you tired yet? Are you tired on the elliptical yet?
Oh, now, you know what the beauty of this is? I can skip a day because I already know what you guys talked about. I don't need to get on the elliptical to listen to my jonesing for football.
Yeah. Okay.
I still want Cody to sign off whenever we end this with "Love you, babe."
Oh, I got it. No problem.
Definitely will. So this is the quarterback version of pat and go. We got to say pat and go because you got places you got to be, babe. We appreciate you joining us here.
Hey, I love it. I really do. I've told you guys, and not because you're my friends, or used to be anyway. I love the show. I love jonesing for football. I tell everybody about it. So if you're out there, tell a friend.
Well, thank you, babe. I appreciate it.
Love it, babe. You're the man.
All right. Oh, you already said love you, babe. You say it at the end, Cody.
I'm going to do it again at the end once you wrap here, Bill Jones.
Can't say it too often, Cody. Cannot say it too often.
All right, babe. Appreciate it. And we will see you next time on Jonesing
for Football. Love you, babe.
Love it.